Hello, welcome to cEDH Budget. I'm Tim, and tonight, continuing our series of beginner cEDH meta busters, we're going to cover Kroxa Worldgorger. But before we get started, please check out our Discord or our Patreon. Links are in the description below. And if you like our content, please go ahead and hit that like, share, subscribe. It really helps out a lot. So, for those of you who don't know what Kroxa is a 6/6 for 1 red, 1 black, Kroxa Titan of Death's Hunger. When it enters the battlefield, you sacrifice it unless it escapes. Not the important part. The important part with Kroxa is that when it enters the battlefield or attacks, each opponent discards a card, and for each opponent that discards a non-land card, they take 3 damage. So the way this basically works is you play Kroxa, you kind of hit everybody for 1 card, and then you're gonna kind of pivot into the main combo, which is Worldgorger plus a reanimation enchantment. Those would be like Dance of the Dead, Animate Dead, and Necromancy. The Worldgorger Dragon is a 7/7 for triple red, 3 colorless, has flying trample. All that text doesn't even matter. The part that matters is when it enters the battlefield, you exile all other permanents you control, and then when it leaves the battlefield, you will return all those permanents to play. So the reason why that's why you're using all those reanimation enchantments is because you'll play like something like an Entomb or something to put it into the graveyard, then play Animate Dead, targeting it, returning it to play, and then it'll replay it'll exile all your lands, all your mana rocks, all that kind of stuff, and then the Animate Dead as well. And then when the Animate Dead leaves play, you'll get a sacrifice trigger to sacrifice the Worldgorger Dragon to put it back into the graveyard, thus returning all of those permanents that it exiled, and then giving you an opportunity to retarget the Worldgorger Dragon, rinse, repeat, till you have unbound mana or a bunch of ETB triggers, things like that. Then once you have all of that infinite mana, generally what you'll want to do is kind of why I mentioned playing Kroxa first, is because you need a second creature to target, so that way you don't make the game end in a draw. So generally that's why you'll play Kroxa first, make everybody kind of discard 1 card, and then as you're generating your infinite mana to get the final target, you'll just play Kroxa. You'll target Kroxa with the Animate Dead, and then since you didn't escape it, you'll have a sacrifice trigger for Kroxa. And then you can just keep recasting Kroxa from the command zone over and over again and killing everybody. That's kind of the main combo. But as a Rakdos deck, you kind of still have all of the black-red core cards. You have Ad Nauseam, you have all the rituals, you get Dockside, and that will really help you kind of power out a lot of this stuff quickly. And you can kind of go for like a Stormwind also as a backup plan. Another line as well is you get Dockside with Cloudstone Curio and just any other creature. And then basically what you do is you play Dockside, you get a bunch of mana. You can also do this with there's some other lines that you can use as well, but the main one with the Cloudstone Curio is Dockside, and then just any other creature. Generally, it'll just be like either Kroxa itself. You can play Kroxa and then kind of use that because if you generate enough mana, you can use your kind of your mana battery creatures like Skirk Prospector, like Blood Pet, like those types of creatures plus your Dockside. As long as you're able to net enough treasures to kind of go mana positive, you can convert that into infinite Kroxas and kill everybody that way. Then, kind of as another kind of tertiary line, and this works with Underworld Breach. Is you have Stitcher Supplier. So Stitcher Supplier will allow you to mill 3 cards when it comes into play, and then mill another 3 cards when it dies. So what you do is you play Calling of the Week with it. That will generate 4 black, and then you'll get the 6 cards to escape, because you'll need 3 cards to escape for the Calling of the Week. You'll need 3 cards to replay the Stitcher, and then you'll net 2 black mana off of each iteration of that loop. And then eventually that'll mill you into something like Wheel of Fortune or some other type of some kind of like game ending state. Another thing is that you can also use like P-Grasp to steal opponents' win cons. Casting Praetor's Grasp 2 times will be more than enough to kind of assemble either like a Consult Oracle or some other 2-card combo. And then for those of you who don't know, Praetor's Grasp is a sorcery for black 1. Search target opponent's library for a card. Put that card face down in exile, and then you may cast that card from exile. You may cast that card as long as it remains exiled. So oftentimes you just need 6 cards in your graveyard on your breach turn, 6 black mana, and then enough mana to play the combo to win. So most oftentimes, especially in like a Nas meta, like a lot of Grixis meta, you'll just get like Tainted Pact and Consult, or Tainted Pact Oracle, or something of that nature. Or like maybe like a Scepter or something, if people are still playing those in 2022. Who knows? And then the other thing that's now that we've kind of got like the basic combos out of the way, the thing that's nice about playing Rakdos is that since you have all this fast mana, you can kind of use, like for your interaction and protection, you get to play some some niche cards, but some good cards as well. Not all of them are niche, but a lot, like some of them are. So Kroxa can be used as hand attack. You can play like stuff like Mind Rake that will just cause everybody to discard cards. You get Chains of Mephistopheles. So if a player would draw a card, except for the first one they draw on each of their draw steps, that player discards a card instead. If they discard a card, they draw a card. And then if they don't discard a card, they mill and they skip their draw. So what's nice about that is that stops people from being able to play a lot of wheels and get ahead on cards. Some of the other kind of cards of note for interaction are like Curse Totem, which shuts off creature activated abilities. That's not as useful in a Grixis meta, like a Grixis Turbo Nas meta, but it is much more useful if you see a lot of Thrasioses. Just kind of note. The another one is Voidmere. So Voidmere is whenever a player casts a spell, if no colored mana was spent to cast it, you counter it. So that shuts off other opposing breach decks if they're not on, like, say, like the Citrus Supplier line. It will shut off free counter magic. It will shut off being able to play like LED with Underworld Breach. But it is something to worry, like, to think about in your deck, that it will shut off your mana rocks. But it is good at when you're going on like those ritual turns, or if you're doing the Worldgorger turn, because it'll stop a lot of the shenanigans. Some other interaction is obviously you get Deflecting Swat, you get Ricochet Trap, Red Blast, Pyroblast, Imp's Mischief, Tibolt's Trickery, and the one I wanted to kind of talk about that I think is kind of a little bit of a sleeper, I played a lot in budget, is actually Ricochet Trap. Ricochet Trap is an instant for 1 red, 3 colorless, and then it changes the target of a spell with a single target, but then has an alternate cost of 1 red if an opponent casts a blue spell this turn. So if somebody tries to counter what you're doing, you can pay that for 1 red, and then it gives you kind of a way to get like an uncounterable way to... It gives you a way to like redirect that counter magic and kind of keep going. Furthermore, for interaction, you get like Ulcerate, Abrade, Toxic Deluge, and then kind of a neat one that plays really well in Kroxa is Oppression. So Oppression is black 1. It's an enchantment. Whenever a player casts a spell, that player discards a card from his or her hand. So especially on like storm turns, like in a storm meta and on storm turns, players will have to cast multiple. They'll try to chain multiple spells together. They will start having to make very difficult decisions, especially if you get this down pre-Nas. Like obviously post-Nas, it's not a big of a deal because they'll just discard like unuseful cards. But to get to the state where, because oftentimes they have to chain several rocks or rituals together to get to that ad nauseum, this can be used to kind of help, kind of kneecap that. Then, kind of, there are some like notable cards for this deck. Like Geth's Grimoire is kind of like a neat card that doesn't really see a lot of play outside of this. It's whenever an opponent discards a card from his or her hand, you draw a card. There's also like Sun-Scorched Desert, which is used as a hard outlet for the Worldgorger lines. It's whenever it enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to target opponent. Another hard outlet is also Shivan Gorge, because of the fact that Worldgorger will keep flickering the lands when it comes into play. Once you make 3 mana, you can pump it into this and kind of go over and over and over and over again. The deck is also on Tainted Pact and Consult and Peagrass, so that way you can kind of steal opponent's cards to kind of give you another hard outlet. And then obviously you have Breach, and then kind of lastly, not only do you have Toxic Deluge for a sweeper, but you also have Fire Covenant. Fire Covenant is pretty nice because it's asymmetrical, and you can kind of target what you want. So you can leave the things that aren't hindering you on board, and then remove the ones that aren't. This deck is curated by the Mormonator. It was recently removed, well, not recently now, but maybe about 2 months ago, it got removed from the main page of the cEDH decklist database, and I felt that it was a deck that needed to be highlighted. I think it's one of the better pure Rakdos decks out there. It definitely can give you a lot of... It has a lot going for it that I think does better than some of the choices that are left. It does have but since you're in red-black, it does have a little bit of a learning curve, because you have to be able to learn how to navigate like opposing interaction pretty effectively, and know when your window is. Also know that when your hand attack is working, or is it just helping somebody's breach kind of happen. But it's got a lot of those tools. It's got a very clean way to win the game, and it's got a very clean way to win the game with its commander. And I don't know. I just think that it is definitely worth highlighting. So just wanted to give Mormonator a shout out. Link to this list will be in the description. So if you want to check it out, give them a shout out. Tell them we sent you. But for that, everybody, have a great night. And goodbye.